Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to thrive in life and in business? Stick around. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris. And as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. That can be found on Amazon or on our website, giantsandsmalls.com. If you are not subscribed on YouTube, subscribe, hit the alert button so you know when we go live. What? Every single dang time. And then join us on Facebook. It's a tribe of giants, because that's where we gather together. We support each other through our own personal journeys, and man, great group of people there. So, and if you haven't signed up for SG7, Nick and I are co-doing that SG group, Sum Gigante. We'll
I
go
think
through
that's the official word is
yeah,
co-doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
co-doing.
Yeah. We are co-doing that.
Yeah, we're co-doing it.
We are so doing that, and we are co-doing that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you can sign up or register. Find there's links all over a tribe of giants. You can find us on there. We've got them on our personal page as well, and we can be friends. So, um, and then we go through like your whole journey. We go through 12 journeys, walk you through each of those steps, and help you see your inner giant, and give you some powerful tools to move through every journey whenever you need to. So, Nick, do you have any other announcements that we need to?
Yeah. Salt Lake City Live, October 14th. We're doing a live one-day intensive here in Salt Lake City. So if you want information on that, also Tribe of Giants, or you can see that at giantsandsmalls.com. So yeah, that'll be fun. We'll go through the 12 journeys in a day, which is cramming a lot of information down to a small space. It's like Aladdin, right?
Yeah, we put some back in the lamp.
Infinite power.
Little bit of space.
Well, good. We got a
You
great
introduce
guest
our guest
today.
now? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on it. So we got Ken Burke, founder and CEO of the Entrepreneur Now Network. He's a speaker, serial entrepreneur, mentor, and author, and he founded Market Live, a market-leading enterprise class e-commerce software platform used by major merchants, generating $2 billion in online sales through the platform. That's a lot.
I mean, it's $2 billion per year, or it was anyway, before I sold the company.
Year.
Yeah, per year. It was a fun business.
Well, that takes it to another level, right? So he sold Market Live to Vista Equity Partners in 2016. He's taught well over 10,000 entrepreneurs how to successfully start and grow their companies. His courses are viewed by students all over the world. And he recently published his book called Prosper, 5 Steps to Thriving in Business and Life. He earned his MBA in entrepreneurship from the University of Southern California, Marshall School of Business, which later awarded him the honor of Entrepreneur of the Year. And we're lucky to have you here. We're going to explore your journey. Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm lucky to be here, and I'm so excited because I didn't know about you guys before, and now I'm learning so much just in our short interaction over the last couple of weeks. And I'm like, where do I get the book? I want to know about these 12 journeys. I'm like, what? How am I missing this? I've already gotten more out of this morning than we're done.
Well, yeah, let's wrap it up. Okay, guys, go to the website, and we're all done.
If it could only be that easy, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, it is.
Great to be
5
here.
easy payments of $19.95.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like an infomercial now.
Right. No, it's our goal, Ken, is to really have people see themselves in your journey and share your wisdom and what you've learned along the way. And we'll share some insights along the way as well as we hear things. But the goal is to have other people see themselves in you, and what you've gone through to create yourself to where you are today. So we always go back. We start with the unconscious journey, which is who you thought you were through the majority of your life. There was a point that you thought you were somebody, and you went through life acting as though that was who you are. And maybe it was less powerful than you are today. Can you speak to that? Is there an
Yes.
experience around? Okay, yes.
I love that first question because it's super, I thought I was stupid. And I know that's like, some people don't even like hearing that word because I'm dyslexic and I'm ADHD or ADD as we called it. But when I grew up, we didn't really diagnose all of that. Hey, there we go, Ryan. All right.
Right.
And
that's why we drink so much caffeine, right?
Exactly. Well, you know what? And it's funny.
I'm doing 92 things at the same time right now.
And the
Can't
thing
see my hands off screen.
Is that no coffee, I don't drink coffee, caffeine, alcohol, anything. I'm naturally caffeinated. And by the way, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning here. I'm sure it's early for everybody as well, but it's, it's both a benefit to the entrepreneurial journey. Certainly a lot of entrepreneurs, by the way, are a little ADD and that's an ingredient for entrepreneurs. It's not a required ingredient, but it's an ingredient that bringing that passion out and bringing that creativity out and looking at things from a lot of different perspectives really quickly and talking fast, which you'll notice I do. I apologize already.
No, please don't. Yeah, just
all that kind of comes together. It's not a requirement to be ADD, but I got to tell you, a lot of us are as well. And so I went through, grade school. I went through, a high school. I always did pretty good in grades because I just worked really hard, but I didn't know I had another choice. And then I went into college. I got into USC and went through undergrad and graduate school. And up until I got through graduate school, and even into starting my company, I kind of thought, I really wasn't that smart or that bright or could think that well because I always struggled with reading. So for instance, if you asked me to read out loud right now, I probably couldn't do it. You're like, how did you get through a graduate degree, an MBA in entrepreneurship and not being able to read? Of course, I can read to myself. But if you, I love the comments, by the way. I have to acknowledge them because I'm not used to seeing them on screen.
They're fun. They add a different element to this.
I appreciate them. Oh my God, I appreciate them so much. And going through that, and it's funny, what woke me up a little bit, this is gonna be crazy, but I took an intelligence test and I'm like, oh, some test told me I'm not stupid, right? And then I went off and started my company and it kind of got reinforced that I wasn't a bumbling idiot and that I could create something and so on and so forth. But you do, because of the way that schools are set up and the way that they're only people learn in a certain way, as we all know, right? And schools teach you one way, but there are many, many ways that kids learn. And I just didn't learn in the same way. So I used to be in fear of having to read a paragraph out loud in a classroom or even a work setting for that matter, although I could always control my work settings because I can do it, but I would stumble through it. And I would stumble through to this day, except I read hundreds of books. I'm going on Amazon right after this and getting yours and reading it. And I'll probably devour it in a week, right? I'll devour it.
Yeah, 30 minutes is all it takes. So
well, there you go.
It's done quicker than you know. Yeah. It'll take you 15.
So going from that to then starting a business and then starting to grow and run it and go through that evolution. But it's funny because what cycles back around. So I start my company, I run it for 21 years. We grow it. We did $2 billion of e-commerce. We had hundreds of major retailers. I was talking to one just about earlier, Sundance Catalog, which was our customer, where you guys are located. And at the end of it, Sell It had a successful exit, had its roller coasters, ups and downs. Let me tell you, the ups and downs, and we'll go into them because there are more ups and downs for sure. And then you get an opportunity to start over again. And what's interesting is that I sold the company. I took a year off. That all sounds glamorous and wonderful, but it wasn't fulfilling enough. It's like, okay, good. I sold the company. Big deal. It really wasn't that fulfilling. I mean, it's just a continuum along this journey that I look at. And I always want to make sure that I'm growing and developing. That's my mission in life, is to grow, develop, and learn. And along the way, hopefully I help people. Hopefully I'm able to contribute back in some fashion, period, full stop. That's the purpose of my life anyway.
I'm going to pull you back.
In starting a new business and going into that new business, you're getting some of this ADD stuff coming.
Yeah, I am. Right? And I'm going to pull you back.
On 3 topics.
I love it because there is so much to cover in here because you just zoomed out. Like, holy cow, you just zoomed out on everything that you've created. But there's a journey here that I want to highlight. Okay. So going back into the idea, I'm going to pull you back in time here to that area where you had that awakening to how you'd been. And so there's usually, so we see the journeys of unconsciousness or non-consciousness, which is who you thought you were. And then the journey of awareness is when you wake up to that. And then the journey of grief. Okay. And I want to hang on the journey of awareness and grief here because a lot of times when people wake up to what they're doing, they have a ton of judgments that come up about themselves and who they are in the world. And then the grief, I see tools like anger, depression as extremely useful tools. And some people think, man, they can't be, they're so painful and they cause suffering. But if you can use them right, like depression will pull you into a space of really looking at reality as it is and finding a better way. But people get stuck in that idea that it's so miserable, they don't know how to come out of it. So they numb out to it. Right.
It's very difficult, but the challenges in life are what make you where you are. And so let me give you an example of that as well.
Yeah.
I'm running my company. I go and get out the best VC known to man, Sequoia Capital. I know some of your listeners may know them. They invested in the first investor in Google, in LinkedIn, Yahoo, Apple. I mean, they are the gold standard best VC in the world. So somehow I landed them. I don't know how it happened. Running the company in about 3 years or 4 years into, 4 or 5 years, we were doing great. And then we had a bad quarter, literally just one bad quarter. And they removed me as CEO. They're like, Ken, we love what you're doing and all, but you're a little young.
Wow.
And we want somebody that's seen the movie, seen the movie, whatever that meant. And so I was removed. I was still at the company and I owned a lot of the company. So I didn't want to leave. I was the chairman and chief evangelist. So I stayed. And I watched my company just disintegrate because we brought in an egotistical CEO. So talk about that journey, which is interesting. You talk about awareness. Before that, I was very judgmental in the business, and the business, I was attached to the business, which was actually very unhealthy. You talk about this grief, pain, or depression. That was my challenge. Is every time something good at the business happened, I was euphoric. Every time something bad, a customer left, they complained, whatever, I was not euphoric. I don't want to say depressed because
that's
euphoric.
a big insight, right? Like the attachment, like we don't just get attached to people, right? We get attached to our creations. Like if my book is doing well, I'm excited. And then if it's not, I'm sad. I'm attached to the outcome here.
Attached to the outcome. Exactly. You just nailed exactly my feeling there. And so when I lost the CEO-ship and was watching my company disintegrate, I had to learn a very hard lesson, right? And life forces you right into the lesson. And it was one of detachment that I have to let whatever happens here go because I can't control all the variables. I'm going to stick with it because that's who I am and that's what I wanted to do. That was my choice to stick with it. But by watching it from a distance and influencing it the best that I could, that was detachment. That was healthy detachment. It took a long time, and I still may need to be detached to things. But what happened was I stopped judging. So what I found was my biggest challenge in the first 10, 12, 14 years of the business was I was very judgmental to the employees, to myself. I stopped judging myself as well. So the detachment allowed me also to learn the lesson around of this idea of judgments and pulling those judgments away. In fact, judgments, and I write about this in my book because I didn't really fully understand judgments. They're real simple. If you're ever rendering an opinion about yourself, I'm too thin, I'm too fat, I'm too smart, I'm too ugly, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too slow or too fast. In my case, too fast, like talking too fast. That's a judgment internally, but you also have external judgments. Anytime you're rendering an opinion about somebody else, you're also, that's a judgment. So people have a hard time identifying judgments. And when I realized that, Dr. Wayne Dyer, who I love to death, of course, he's passed, and I love reading all of his books, and I think I've read every one of them, taught me that. But it took me a while to parse all that out and just figure it's only an opinion. So if I kind of like do the rubber band test and say, you know what, acknowledge, be aware when I'm rendering an opinion and that it's coming from ego, I can kind of separate from it. That's the awareness is the first part. It's I would say it's the first step in the 12-step process.
It absolutely is. Holy crap, man. You are like bringing so many nuggets here. I've got to highlight them. Okay.
Very good.
So
yeah, I've got carpal tunnel from taking notes already.
We're gonna have to go back and slow this down to listen to it.
I know Ryan's keeping up with me, a fellow ADD here. Come on, yeah.
Little liquid courage is helping too.
I don't know if you should be drinking that there.
Probably not. It's probably not.
So the detachment we teach in the journey of acceptance. Detachment is simply that. It's detaching from whatever happened in your life, because we work with a lot of people who've had trauma, neglect, abuse, a lot of self-doubt, insecurities. And these are successful people. It's amazing that on the outside, you would look at them and you'd say, there is no issue there. But inside, there's a different story going on. So that detachment is another word for acceptance. It's just simply detaching from the outcome, accepting it is what it is. Whatever happened. We can handle it. But going back to the judgment too, the judgment, of serving an opinion to whatever's going on in your life. And see, I have this idea around beliefs and opinions as the same thing. Like we have beliefs about what's going on, or we have opinions, so judgments essentially.
Same thing.
Yep. So we're getting into these expectations that are created from those judgments, and we either learn or we don't learn, because it either opens us up to learning or it shuts us off to learning based on what we want to opinion.
Absolutely. Right? And the solution to this is a little bit, I mean, it's more that you're going to have judgments. Let's understand. You're going to have some opinions about other people. You're going to have opinions about yourself. It's more the awareness. I know when I'm coming from ego. So coming from ego, I have to catch myself, because that was another problem that I had growing a business in my younger years. You can become not egotistical. You just come from ego. Yeah. Everything is identified as who, what your status is and what you own and what you make, the money that you make and all of that. And anytime that I'm doing that, again, it's just becoming aware, especially. So it's not going to completely eliminate, everything, but then I get a choice when I become aware. So now I can look at it, because it's like a muscle. I built up the muscle so that now when I'm interacting with my students, or maybe interacting with a corporate customer or what have you, I'm arguing with them. Maybe I started an argument. I'm like, am I wanting to win this just because I want to win this? And sometimes still to this day, as much writing and reading and listening and all of that.
That's exactly why I started this. And I'm going to finish it.
Yeah, exactly right.
Every now and again, you got to just win one.
Yeah, well, every now and again, and you have to know why you're in it and why you're in that argument or why you're in that. And sometimes, it's just better to pull out. But then I get at least to make a conscious choice as opposed to an unconscious choice. And that is the ding, ding, ding for me anyway. I'm not going to completely eliminate judgments, but at least if I know kind of being judgmental in this case, then I can then consciously decide. But up until that point, it's all unconscious. Now I built up the muscle because I work at it all the time. I'm very, very focused on. I'm not obsessed by it, but I'm focused by it. And then I can actually push through it. And I like having that decision. Sometimes I'm like, this is going to be helpful for me to come from ego. Darn it.
Right. Michael Singer, what's that book? The
Untethered Soul or Surrender?
Yes, any of those. Read them all. They're amazing. So the Surrender Experiment, he talks about that, quieting his inner mind. But then he realized, no, I'm not going to quiet my inner mind. He's like, I'm just going to be aware of it. He was trying to shove it down and push it away, and he did that for years and years and years, trying to find that peace and stuff like that. And then he realized, no, like in relation to Nick's book, the small parts, the small things in our life are learning tools for us to grow.
It's all, even the big things as well. In my opinion, losing my CEO-ship, if you will, was a big deal at the time, because that was how I identified myself. I identified myself by, I have this company and it's got 250 people in it, and I've got revenue. I've got hundreds and hundreds of customers doing millions and millions and millions of dollars on my platform, that I and others, of course, because I have a full team, created. And so what, so the big things as well in life, or other big things like relationships or other things that just devastate you. You lose you break up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you lose a spouse, you get divorced, whatever. Those are big events, but they're teaching events, because here's the deal. We're here to learn, grow, and develop, period. Again, full stop. My book is all about everything emanates from growth, everything. So if you start looking from the perspective that it's all about growth, you literally can eliminate all failure in your life. And I don't say that as kind of a weird self-helpy kind of thing. I'm just literally looking at it as everything I go into is I know, didn't that sound weird?
No, that's great. I got it perfectly, because that's how I describe it. Self-help.
We're all kind of like this personal development thing, and I come from the business world and the tech world that sometimes is a little bit like, what is he talking about? These touchy-feely things. Go for it. Talk about it. But I'm here today with all of you, and we're all kind of the same mind that this stuff is really good for us. This stuff is really good for us.
It really is. So when you hit on grief, because you hit on grief and depression, grief is loss, any kind of loss. It can be ambiguous. It can be in any direction, right? So you can have grief over an ideal that never came about. You can have a loss over something that never even happened, right?
Absolutely.
And then to turn it into depression is where you identify with it. Now depression says, I am faulty because of that loss, right? So that's where people really get hung up. And so when you have this loss of your position, your CEO-ship, right? And there's that loss. It could be a relationship, anything. You have that loss, and you could have a sense of ruminating from that loss, which is part of grief, right? Is to internalize. And then when that internalization happens, then that's where depression starts to kick in that says, I am faulty because of that loss. So how do you navigate that? What are some of your tools?
Exactly where I was going with what I was saying there is that
I knew you were going there. Yeah.
No. I love that you connected it back to things that I didn't necessarily connect it to. So I'm learning here today as well, because I think of failure, but then because I'm not really, I don't experience a lot of depression in my personal life, but I have people around me where I help them through that, just friends, family, other things. So you connected kind of this fear of failure to depression, which I think is a very interesting connection. But so if everything is about learning, growing, and developing, so every experience that I have, whether I lose my CEO-ship or whether I'm having a good experience or a bad experience, I'm growing. It's the act of growing that then reinforces my happiness and fulfillment. That's where I get my happiness and fulfillment from. So if I actually have a failure, and I've started businesses after Market Live, my bigger exit, and I've had my challenges at the Entrepreneur Now Network, although it's been wonderful and brilliant, but it wasn't the big gargantuan thing that it was. It's kind of a nice business that really helps people, and I love that. That's all I want it to be. It doesn't need to be anything else. But that wasn't what my original vision was. I thought it was going to be gargantuan. Now I've started off, and I do have another company, and I'm building it, and it's going well. But it takes longer than I thought, because I thought if I did it once, well, I already know about this, so it should be a lot shorter. Well, when you have to relive something, especially in business as entrepreneurs, when you go do it in the second time and the third time and maybe the fourth time, they're all different experiences. They're all different realities and variables that you're going through. So you're going to be challenged with new things. And if I continually internalize and say, well, I'm just a failure. I thought I was good, but my ego said I was good, and now it's not working like I wanted it to. Which, by the way, that's kind of life, right? It doesn't always work to what you have in your mind and the picture you have in your mind as fast as you want it to go, right? I should be up and running, and the business should be making $10 million in the first year. Yeah, that's a great expectation, but you know what? And then what you do is you beat the crap out of yourself when it doesn't happen, which I used to be great as a child, right?
That right there, right?
Bingo.
Like the expectations are a normal part of it. We have expectations about what will happen, right? And so expectation is simply the idea that there's this anticipation that what you think is going to happen.
The key is what you think is going to happen, not what is reality in any given situation. And so it's not even setting, astronomical goals, but I love the idea. I mean, you can set astronomical goals, but it's the beating up yourself for not making it. And where this stuff comes from, I mean, for me, it came from my critical father, and loved him to death. Greatest father in the world, but he's hypercritical to me. I think some of your listeners can identify with a hypercritical parent. And I just learned that skill. I got really good at criticizing myself. And I used to use, I remember my 20s,
you didn't need him anymore, right? You could do it for yourself. Yeah.
In my 20s, I used negative motivation to motivate me. So, and I was 26. I remember exactly where I was at. And I'm like, I'm not going to use negative motivation to motivate myself anymore. Done, stop. We're done. We're out. And I've always been a student of personal development, from, my teens on. So, I had at least read some things and listened to things and so on and so forth that allowed me to at least get to that realization. But I want to make sure that we understand, and the audience understands, that this idea of failure does not exist. And it's really, really important, because again, along that journey of learning, growing, and developing, how are you ever going to know if something's working or not if you don't go out and try it? So I tell my entrepreneurs a couple of things. One is action creates momentum. I very much believe in that. So take action, number one. And even if it's the wrong action, or the action isn't exactly where it is, you're going to get feedback. You're going to get tons of feedback on that action. And that's going to point you in a different direction, because the journey of entrepreneurship doesn't happen in 1 month, 6 months, 12 months. It happens over 20 years. It did for me anyway, or over 15 years. If you think you're going to sell your business for $1 billion in 3 years, and it's funny, I lecture at some local universities here in San Francisco. And they come up and say, well, why, shouldn't I be a unicorn in 3 years? Unicorn is a company worth over $1 billion. And I laugh at them like, well, what universe did you come from? They only study the result of what happened at Uber or
TikTok
or Facebook. They forgot about the journey, or they only look at the one out of a 10,000 or 100,000 success stories, and they forget all the other ones that have to kind of go along the way. There's a lot of definitions of success out there. Let me tell you, another topic, a lot of definitions. Make sure, I write about this in my book, make sure you know your definition of success. It is absolutely critical. Make sure it's not somebody else's definition, which we oftentimes do. And make sure you know what that is, because that's going to help on the expectation side. And if you put it in context that failure is impossible because I'm learning, growing, and developing, then it's impossible to fail because you're always getting this feedback. You're always having this growth experience. And to me, growth is fulfillment. That's my personal
Okay.
thing.
So yeah, I want to hang here because
Okay.
good grief, you have a lot in you. You have a lot of really powerful information in you. But I want to highlight it, slow it down a little bit to where we're at, because the idea of a growth mindset is a mindset, you know, and the word perform, right, means to carry out. To act means to carry out. And the only way we can see how a performance goes is to act it out. Because then we get results and evidence and ideation that we can then learn from and then plug back into our practice, right? So as we practice things, that becomes who we are, and that who we are becomes the thing that thinks, and that thing that thinks determines our expectations, and that's where we make our predictions, and that's where we have our thoughts and our emotions and our actions, right? So the idea here is that this is a constant process of growth, versus some people think there's an external locus of control. I don't have a say in my life. Somebody else has a say in my life. And so bringing it back to that is you have a really, really strong mindset of growth, which means that if there's going to be any expansion in my life, one, I'm seeking it. And two, I'm the one that can do that. There are a lot of people that still believe that control of growth and their mindset is up to something or someone else outside of them. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh my God. Well, clearly it's not. You know, I've always been of the perspective that I'm completely responsible for my life. I have to be. And I actually, the whole victim mentality thing, and I do have some friends that, you know, kind of exert the victim mentality, and I just see how destructive it is in their life.
Is there another way to say victim on that? Is it more like the external locus, like somebody else has control of my life kind of?
There's a much more. There is a much more positive way of kind of looking at that, but it is that you're at the effect of somebody. Probably didn't use the right word, but you're at the effect of somebody else, and it's a belief that you hold that somehow there are external forces controlling your life, and there are not. You control 100% of your success, and if you look at it from that and take control, wow, what you can do. But it's a hard routine to get out of, because somehow that belief was embedded in you. And what I found in the people that I interact with, can be fairly deep in terms of that. So it's a little bit, you have to really be aware and work at pulling that out of you, I think.
This is going to be an odd connection, but I watched a farmer or a rancher clean out a cyst on the hoof of a cow, right? And this infection had built into that foot. And it was so painful to the cow that it was all enclosed in it, but it was deep in there. And to get it out, he had to clear out almost the whole thing, right? He had to clean out this abscess. And it was really disgusting to watch. But there's that deep work that often has to be done, is we have this stuff so ingrained within us that it's not just a one and done repair. We have to do some deep digging to release that stuff. And it really is a release, because the moment you look at it for what it is and release it, it all of a sudden loses its power. I think Barry McDonough talks about that. Yeah. Keep going. I mean,
and I think one of the keys is, I have a whole chapter in my book just on awareness, because I think awareness is so important. I know it's important. You've brought it up several times. I'm sure it's important as well. But once you become aware, then you have an absolute understanding of how to be, or you have an ability to start the process of healing, or start the process of getting through it. And I found awareness is the greatest tool that I have. I call it a superpower, because I just think it's so important. And you can start to work your way out of that.
What can you do if you're not aware?
Well, I don't, I'm going to ask you, what can you do if you're not aware? That's a really hard thing to fix, because you've got a lot of input from other people. And I always say, when you get input from other people, because everybody's got an opinion, right? And I tell my entrepreneurs this, including the advice that I give them about their investment pitch or their funding strategies or whatever they want to do in their business. Take what resonates and process it, and throw out the rest. Because as an entrepreneur, I had Sequoia Capital, I had 5 other VCs in when, at our height, and they would all give me advice. And no matter what, at the end of the day, let me tell you what Sequoia Capital, the largest VC in the world, told me right after they gave me the money. They said, Ken, if you make a mistake, you get 3 strikes, by the way, and you're out as CEO. If you make a mistake, that's strike 1. If we force you to make a decision or make a move, a strategy, and it doesn't work, then it's strike 2 on you. And if we both jointly agree that we're gonna go do something and it's wrong, that's strike 3.
But no pressure, right?
No pressure, and you get 3 strikes and you're out.
You got
good luck. Let's go. Rah, rah, right? That's a way to motivate. But you know what? It always stuck with me because I'm like, wow. In other words, it doesn't matter what you do. If we force you to do something, guess what? You're still responsible.
Yeah,
wow.
Wow.
Right? That's a real life example of what you just talked about.
Yeah. Wow. It's, man, that deep work that we're talking about here, and we'll get into vision and dreaming and abundance. That's, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But I mean, this deeper work is so vital, like who you're being when you're creating. I just recently started sharing this is it's not just who's doing the doing, it's who's doing the viewing in your life, who's looking forward in your life, because we have a way of being that's so ingrained. And we have the ability to change it. The brain is powerful. It's plastic. It has the ability to create new pathways for our entire life. Research shows this. But we get so cemented in our way of being that we don't think there's another way, because the way we see it is the way that it is, quote unquote, and that's how it's always going to be, and it's never going to change. And you'll see these in the book, The Giants and the Smalls, or these are the statements that people say when they're in a small space, is there's nothing I can do. It's out of my control. I just take what's given. But the truth is when you wake up to it, the hard part is we go right into our opinions about what happened and who we were. And then that keeps us from growth. And the goal is to let go of those opinions for a minute. Just set them aside for a minute. Like you said, I love this, is dissociate in a way, separate yourself, detach from what you thought should be and who you think you are for a moment, just so you might be able to learn something different. Can you speak to that?
Well, one of the ways, either I'll say the universe or the forces that be will pull you out of that. In my case, that was an unhealthy relationship with myself as CEO, going 1,000 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden the board sits me down and says, you're no longer going to be CEO. And unfortunately, at that point in time, we had 3 rounds of funding, and I lost 50% control, but I was still a very, very large owner of the company. And they made the decision for me. And then to go through that whole process so sometimes you get woken up by external forces, and then you can either do one of 2 things. Most entrepreneurs would have left the company. Their ego would not have allowed them to stay, or they would have self-selected out when their replacement was literally destroying their company. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't leave. And I stuck through it. But so that was a lesson in and of itself. So that detachment, that I was able just to continue to work away at it. It did not happen overnight. It took many years to continually detach from that big activity.
Yeah. Wow. See, thank you for that. Thank you for showing that it took years to completely remove yourself from that emotion of it, that connection to it. And as somebody, I think it was Hugh that mentioned earlier that, grief is found in our love of something, our attachment to it, right? We love what we're attached to. And then when there's a separation, there's a grief. And I think it's Rumi that said that joy is concealed in grief. Mm-hmm. And grief is a journey. It's one of our journeys because it's so overlooked, is that when we go into that sadness and that loss, so many of us identify with that loss. It becomes our ego. And then that's how we operate. And so you're really giving us a gift here by saying, look, I was at a company that's producing $2 billion a year, and I got removed.
Yeah,
that's a big loss, right?
It was a big loss. It was how I identified myself, because my entire journey was through school. I was an entrepreneur. I was a business person. Then what happens is the world starts to see you, because your ego tells you this, that I'm a CEO of a company that's doing XYZ. And then you have VCs telling you this, and you have customers telling you this, and you're kind of on a platform to a certain degree, or a pedestal, if you will, or you put yourself there, your ego put yourself there. And then it all comes crashing down. So managing your ego, which is another part of my book, managing your ego and understanding your ego triggers are really, really important. And so if you can understand that and start to just work on it, and how I found to get, by the way, I'm not over my ego yet. It's a lifelong journey, trust me, as well as judgments and other things. But I'm better at understanding and recognizing them. And I try not to come from ego when I can, because it's so destructive for me. So that awareness starts to, you start to build it up, and it becomes easier and easier as you go.
Okay. So what are you grateful for in all of that?
I love that question, because gratitude is is so ridiculously important. And I think it's the forgotten gift that we all have, because it's impossible when you're giving gratitude to be unhappy. So if we're striving for happiness, which, by the way, I believe you're not going to be happy all the time, just like everything else we said. I don't think we're designed to be happy all the time.
No, I'm with you.
Close.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and don't have an expectation, as you said earlier, don't have an expectation that I am supposed to be happy and fulfilled every moment of every day. Here's what's my last chapter in my book, and what I just practice every day is practicing joy, happiness, and fulfillment. You literally have to, and you guys know this, your whole audience knows this. You have to practice joy, happiness, and fulfillment each day, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling, whether it's thank you notes, whether it's, it's exercise. Keep those vibrations going and keep that. And that kind of helps work you through the process as well. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't answer your question because I'm ADD, so I went on.
No, you're good. We're going to get to it. So I look at, Steve Hardison, who's a coach to owners of billion-dollar companies. He's on here right now watching, and he's an inspiration for all of this. Steve Hardison put me on his shoulder about 13 years ago and showed me a different way of seeing the world. And I haven't looked back. I haven't looked at it differently from then. And so if you don't know who he is, his book, The Ultimate Coach, you definitely need to check that out. You'll see yourself in his journey, right? And that's his goal, is to have you see yourself in there. But part of this, going into the gratitude, one of our journeys is the gratitude journey, right? The gratitude has this power to release not only dopamine, but serotonin, which are our grit and endurance chemicals, and then also our feel-good chemicals. But then you talked about, happiness being a chemical. It's a release. Chemicals last in the body about 90 seconds unless we re-trigger them and keep them going, right? So in most cases, they'll just dissipate and move out. So happiness as a chemical response isn't meant to be an ongoing long-term thing. It's supposed to come and go, right?
Yeah,
otherwise, you wouldn't pursue it, right?
Well, it would lose its power as well. I mean, and if you're happy all the time, where are the learning opportunity or learning experiences? I'm not saying that we shouldn't be generally
satisfied, could we say, or having a satiation for life is different.
That is
being happy.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful, and that's a lesson that I learned only a couple of years ago from one of my teachers as well. Is that and she had gotten to this point, and through her ego journey and judgment journey and all of that, she got to a point of satiation. And she tried to teach it to me. I'm still working on that one, but it's this idea that I have enough. I don't need any more. I call it the treadmill effect, which is, okay, so as soon as you make a bunch of money, you sell your company, make a bunch of money, and you think, oh, you're done, you're good, this is great. Well, I'm all about growth and development, and I was completely unfulfilled when I sold my company. I mean, it was great. It was a euphoric event for about 6 months. I did take a year off. And then, what do I retire? I was 50 at the time, sold it 5 years ago. I'm 55 now. And life I jump right back in because that's where I get fulfilled. I get fulfilled by growing things and helping people and doing things. What am I just going to sit on a beach somewhere? That to me was just ultimate death.
Somebody else.
Terrible.
Yes.
So satiation is a mindset. I already had enough. I have more than enough. I don't need any more. I didn't need any more before I sold the company, by the way. I don't need any more now. So here's how I look at it. It's ice cream on top of the cake. I look at satiation as every, and sometimes I have to say this. I was saying this a couple of years back as I was going through some struggles with my newer businesses, right? That I already have everything I need. I'm completely taken care of in all aspects. But anything that else is a bonus. I would call it a bonus. If something good happened that day, it was a bonus. Something bad happened that day, well, I already have everything I need. So it's kind of okay. That was just my little mental tool for saying, I don't need any more of anything, but everything I get is just a little extra. It's just a little extra, but I don't need it for fulfillment.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Like the journey of empowerment that we do is all about these little tools, right? Like gratitude is one of the tools, but it's a standalone. Like it is a journey of its own. But then you move into empowerment of these little things like detachment and fulfillment and curiosity. These are tools that can actually really put you into a space of feeling good. And this is where I want to segue into the next part, because we've really hit on the root journeys here. There are 6 root journeys that you really nailed down that deal with that deep inner work. Now we're going into our external world and we're looking at uncertainty and abundance. And I'm going to give you a couple of views, some seeds to plant here, and you go with it, because I know you will here.
We'll see. We'll see.
But uncertainty, it's Margaret Drabble says that when nothing is sure, everything is possible. And depending on how you're looking at uncertainty, you can see doom and gloom, depending on your expectations, or you can see opportunity, right? And if you look at the uncertainty from the space of possibility and opportunity, it all depends on who's looking, who's doing the viewing, right? And then you look at abundance, and abundance isn't something to acquire.
Yep.
It's something that we use in our environment. Like, we already have all the resources, people, products, everything we need is already there, but it's in a form maybe that doesn't serve us yet. So we transform it in the laws of thermodynamics from the form it's in to the form it could be, right? So when you get into that, now it requires abundance to pull all that together, or vision to pull all that together, because now what you expect from playing with abundance and looking at possibility, your expectations or vision are what are going to hold you in line as you work that through. Does that make sense? So,
yeah, completely.
So maybe you have a different version of that. And I want you to just go like you do. You're amazing at that. You've got so much knowledge, What do you see in that?
Yeah, well, first of all, obviously, I think the key thing is being an entrepreneur. I'm coming at it from an entrepreneur perspective.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, that you got to create a big vision. So I always say point up and to the right. And if we're on screen, people can see that. Point up and to the right. One of my greatest teachers, my mentors through my business, who is wildly and ridiculously successful, taught me that. He's like, Ken, if you point, and he didn't say to the stars, you might hit the moon. That's
point to the right, right?
But you point up here. I guarantee you, if you point down here, you will never get up there, right?
Interesting.
So, but if you point down here, or you point up here, you might not hit exactly where you're at. Get back to expectation. But the idea is that literally is abundant. You can hit even higher than that. The point is that obviously aiming high. I teach entrepreneurs to create a big vision. And I love the fact that you use the term vision, because when you create a big vision, it sets out the kind of the journey, but the journey you don't put a timeline on the vision. That's not how it's supposed to be. And you then you have to break the vision down, and you narrow it down into where you start. Because if you try to start from the big vision perspective, then you're going to have a real challenge, because you're trying to accomplish so much. And it's too hard for our brains to be able to handle. Any brain.
It's overwhelming, right? In fact, the brain registers it as pain. And in pain,
like, there's no way. The blocks start to come in right away.
They do, immediately.
You figure out all the reasons why you can't do it. So what I want my entrepreneurs to do is break things down into small bite-sized pieces. Elon Musk, and I love him or hate him, or dislike him or whatever. I don't want to get into that aspect of it. But if you remember, his first cars, the little small roadsters, were blowing up left and right. He's down the street over here from me. I mean, his plant is anyway, or the headquarters. Well, headquarters. I guess now at headquarters in Austin. But
I went and knocked on their door.
Who would have thought that in my area, every other car is a Tesla. Everybody has I don't want a Tesla just because everybody has one, literally. And that might have been his vision, and I know his vision was something that it's even much grander than just what Tesla is or what he's doing. But it started small, and it started with a lot of failures. If you actually read the story, to innovate something, because when we innovate, we break things along the way, as we talked about. So you don't have. I want to make sure that those things don't stop you, because what ends up the incredible power or incredible abilities that everybody listening to this has. And unfortunately, we stop ourselves from that because of all the fears that pop up, and all the roadblocks, and our own ego, and all the things. So abundance is filled with a road that our psychological journey kind of has to get us through, right? So and as you start to expand that, and I think starting with a big vision, breaking things down into small bite-sized pieces, and just starting to take action, that action will create more momentum. As I said before, that creates more momentum, that then things start to build on themselves. It starts with you as an entrepreneur. You start your company or whatever you do, and then all of a sudden you might bring somebody else in. They give you energy. They give you new ideas. They give you an ability that you didn't have. And then you start working with somebody else, whether you're contracting or hiring them, or they're a consultant or a coach or what have you, right?
Ryan Morris.
There you go.
Right?
You can't do everything Ryan does. Ryan has skills.
No, I can't.
No, and I can't really either. We need Ryan, and Ryan needs Nick.
Yeah.
And they work together, they give each other energy, and that
Yep.
starts to create momentum in the business. And then you get a customer, or you start making money, or maybe it's on your podcast where you're getting more and more listeners, and then you start making advertising. Again, detach from all of the outcome. I don't
Yep.
care about your outcome at all, but I do care about the people that you're able to impact. And I always, oftentimes I tell people that are starting a business for not a nonprofit, but like a mission-based business. And they say, all I want to do is do good in the world, which I think is great. I always tell them, you can do a lot more good with a lot more money. So run the social impact business that, by the way, every Gen Zer and millennial, because I teach a lot of them, want to do. A lot of them have elements, which I love, of social impact in their business, some more than others. But when you're socially impacted and socially minded, that's great, but you've got to still run it like a business. You grow it, and that abundance that you're creating allows you to do more good, that then grow it again, do more good. That's also a summary of abundance in general, because whatever you're going to do with what your outcome is, that abundance can be created, but you need to be thinking about that.
That overflowing. So Hugh's comment here. I'll make a snide comment back a little bit here of discovery versus learning, and it's like, well, learning is knowledge, right? So I'm gaining knowledge about what I'm discovering. So how about that, Hugh?
Yeah.
If that works. The idea here with the abundance, right? The overflowing of something. I live in a town called Bountiful, which means
I love it.
Right? So it's an abundance of something, whatever it is. Well, we're surrounded by abundance, but depending on our mindset, we might not see that we've already got all these things around us. So then we take those and we transform them into the thing they could be, and then we abound in that thing, and then we take that and we use it to transform it into something else, into something else, into something else, and it keeps expanding outward. When we get into this limiting view of there's not enough, there aren't enough resources, there aren't enough people, it's not a problem with the resources. It's a problem with our viewership of what we're seeing in the world. So when you talk about vision, now what you're leaning on too is by bringing it back down. I think it's Steve Jobs that says you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do that looking backward.
Yeah.
So surrender, I think of Edison and his 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Right.
That guy was willing to try everything to figure out how to create a light bulb. Right.
You're hitting on something so important. This idea, especially as an entrepreneur, and I teach my entrepreneurs this as well, patience, perseverance. You have to be patient. There is a timeline out there that you've created for yourself, an expectation. We kind of talked a little bit about this. And then there's one that maybe the universe or whatever you believe in terms of is out there, right? And they may not line up. And whoops, I'm so sorry that you thought something should happen in a day or a week or a month, and it may take a year and you just didn't realize it. You have to be patient with it. I always say you've got to be in the game to win the game. So whether you're talking about a football metaphor, they got to be on the playing field in order to win the game. Can't win it from the sideline. Got to win it in there. That's where, again, action and taking action, and just continue to peel the onion. And that's what I did with Entrepreneur Now. Quite frankly, it wasn't a huge hit right off the bat. Now we have 175 courses. We're teaching entrepreneurs all around the world. We've got distribution in every continent in the world. And it was just peeling the onion until we stumbled across different things that started, and then we found something that worked. Yeah. And then we start working with it, and then and delivering our value and actually having real impact. That's the way it works, guys. There's no like lightning bolt that comes down from the sky and you have this instant success. Maybe there's a case or two of it, and maybe that's what you hear about. But I got to tell you, that's not the way that it works. You just keep going at it and going at it and going at it, and you start just peeling away that, and all of a sudden, abundance comes in. Again, I started off with one transaction on my e-commerce business, which we did $2 billion a year for our customers. So we had hundreds and hundreds of name brand customers. It started with one transaction and one server, and that one server used to go down all the time. This was back in 95, 96. And I remember even up through the years in the earlier days, I mean, we had hundreds of servers doing transactions, and they'd go down here and there, and holiday and Thanksgiving, and oh my God, I mean, all the tragedies that were happening along that journey. But somehow our customers stuck with us, we stuck with them, and we just continue to grow and grow. And we got new customers, and then they grew, our revenue grew because their revenue grew, and it just started to snowball until we sold it for a good amount of money, right? Yeah. But that wasn't a journey that happened in a day or a week. It took 21 years. Yeah. And we had our ups and downs in that. But, at the end of the day, God, what a great lessons, all those lessons that I learned, and a lot of fulfillment, a lot of relationships that I built along the way that are people that are still in my life and in my newer companies as well. That's abundance to me. That's
Yeah.
abundance. Being able to work with people that I absolutely love to work with and allow them to have their creativity flourish. That's abundance to me.
Okay, so there's a word that keeps popping to mind here as you say that there's a persistence that has to happen. The word passion, right? It comes from the word suffering. Okay, the word passion means to suffer, but it's a suffering that we're willing to do, not a suffering that's imposed on us. And there's a big difference there. Is that when you're willing to suffer for your vision, because there will be some suffering in it. There will be some hard times and challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you want it. It's like you're a masochist for creation in a way. Like, I don't know if there's a better way to say that.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
very true. It's very true. Because and that passion carries forward.
Depends on who's looking. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you, and that passion is infectious, as we all know.
Yeah.
And so as entrepreneurs, it's one of the things also that we need. That passion is a key ingredient to vision. So you marry vision and passion together, and all of a sudden you kind of have this explosion that happens that you're drawing other people into it, whether they're investors, whether they're people that are maybe they're going to work in the company, or maybe they're just going to be customers or what have you. It all works. And one of the things that we bottled up, but that passion kind of exude. That was probably the key ingredient for our success in the business. Yeah, we had a good product and everything, but we were a very passionate company. I'm a passionate person. So we were a passionate company, and customers would come to us just because they want to work with us. They wanted to work with us because of our love for what we were doing and the care that we had around them and the care that we gave them. Our relationships weren't 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. Sundance Catalog, which I had mentioned at the beginning of this before in the pre-interview, was a customer for 20 years. 20 years running the same platform.
Wow.
We went to, and I mean, it's insane that this doesn't happen in our industry. In the software industry, that never happens. We had many customers like that. And it was because we cared so much and we always were delivering tons of value. That's a different podcast. I know, in terms of delivering value.
We need to have you back, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to hit on two more things here because
Yeah.
we're so close to time here, but the importance, in your view, of nurturing yourself to nurture your business or your creation. And then finally, and we'll wrap up with that one, is the legacy. Why are you doing any of it? Right. So our legacy journey is the wrapping up journey that we use to wrap everything together, because it just pulls it all. It's what gets you up in the morning, gets you going. But I want to hear from your point of view. How do you nurture yourself, or what are some things you do to nurture yourself, to nurture your creation? And what is your legacy?
Yeah. Oh, wow. You're asking really good questions. I'm going to go through them really quick here.
Okay.
To nurture myself, for me, it's being outdoors, hiking, exercise, meditation, high vibration. So I actually wrote something down, like it's about 4 or 5 months ago. And I'm like, I got to do a video on this. I got to do a video on it. And I call, creating high vibrations, because if I vibrate at a higher level, and I say higher level, just more energy putting out and doing. So what I did is I wrote down 15 things that I want to make sure that I'm doing to create that high vibrations in my life, those vibrations, because I know those vibrations, if I'm attracting people in my life that are negative or that are pulling me down, I need to get rid of them. Okay. That I'm sure you've had shows where that's been covered as well. That was just one example. And so I want to make sure that I kind of push away any of that, anything that's going to bring my energy down, my vibrations down, because here's what I know. I can attract more. And this isn't a personal development thing, guys. I'm not a personal development guy per se, right? I'm just a guy living a life. And I do know that when I'm vibrating at a higher level, things just start coming in. They come in a lot easier if I'm vibrating at a higher level. So nurturing myself is part of that. I have to tell my friends, sometimes I have mom friends, right? So friends that they're moms and oh my goodness, being a mom is like, I don't even know how they do it. And my god kids and nephews and nieces and other things. And I tell my mom friends that they need to feed themselves. They need to put gas in the tank, because they're going to be so much better at what they do, because they're putting out so much passion for their children that they don't have anything left for themselves. And I'm just like, let's go out to dinner.
Can you say that again? Like, we have a lot of mompreneurs in our organization. And the idea of putting themselves first is so challenging for many of them.
Yeah. It's a near impossibility. It's a block. And there's probably a lot of, we could explore that, but not today. There's a lot of reasons for that, why that exists in their childhood and what they're trying to bring to their kids this generation and so on and so forth. Yeah. But and they even though that I tell them this, they still struggle with it. They struggle with taking time for themselves. but they know intellectually they're super smart. They know if they do it, if they can just get themselves to do it, that they're going to be better at what they do, but they feel guilty in the process.
Yes.
I can't take things away from
Wow.
me when I can just give to my children. The problem is that if you just realize, just step back just a little bit, you're going to give a lot more because of it. That's just what I realize, or what I see from the outside. I'm not a mom, so hey, I've learned long ago.
You can be these days, so whatever you choose.
Exactly, right, exactly. But it's more
identifying as a mom.
It's just being there for them, and that.
Yeah.
So nurturing myself, high vibrations. I know we're out of time. Keep those vibrations high, because you will. The connection I made about 4 or 5 months ago was that you'll bring things into your life from these high vibrations. So you got to practice them. So I've been practicing them more and more, right? Getting out, travel, by the way, I just want to give a side note. Travel to me is my regenerative medicine. When I travel, I am alive again. And that for me that's just my thing. It's exploring and looking and finding new places are amazing. And my why, the legacy is, for me anyway, is to serve. And I've been struggling with this. I've been struggling with my why. After I sold my company, it was all about the company beforehand. I want to do this next section of my life differently. And not that the other one was not great, but I want to be contributing back and giving back constantly, because that will feed me. And I got to tell you, running a purpose-driven business, for me, a purpose-driven business is, I'm going to run a software company. I've got a software company. We haven't talked about it. We don't need to talk about it, but I'm going to embed in that software company something, and I'm looking for it right now. Literally, if your listeners have advice, I'd love it. Is that thing we're going to add on to it that makes it a purpose-driven business? That means we take 10% of our profits and we go feed children. We find how many meals can we feed each year, or it's maybe it's because it's an e-learning company. It might be education in other countries.
Can we hang on this?
Whatever we can give back, we got to figure it out. We need to measure it, because we are a business and we measure things. But the next business I do, and every business that every entrepreneur that I coach, I want to have something that's mission driven in the business that is giving back. Otherwise, I don't want to do the business.
I want to give you a thought here, just a perception, a possibility, right? The word purpose, the Latin purpos, I think is pausar, to pause, a place to rest, like a rest stop on a trip. That we will not rest until this is accomplished, right? Becomes purpose. And so the idea that I'm not going to rest until this is realized is purpose, right? And the idea of, part of that, one of the purposes of the infinite purposes I will have in my life, like you're saying here, is to give back to the world. Yeah. So I am going to rest when that happens. Up until then, I'm busy. Does that make sense? So like there's a perception of that, of a purpose-driven life is one that I will not rest until my dream is accomplished, or I've upgraded that for a better dream, and
absolutely. And the only thing I caution the audience on is, when you're on purpose and you're driving for this, make sure you have all the other mechanisms that we talked about today, which is awareness and not beating yourself up and not doing it for the wrong reasons, and enjoy the journey as well. So if I'm on a purpose-driven life, there might be some sacrifice, there might be some uptimes and downtimes, but remember that the journey is what you're there for. And I know we all know it, but we forget it. We do forget this, that you need to make sure that you've got joy, happiness, and fulfillment integrated into your life every day. And that's going to just make your purpose come alive and be stronger. And you're going to be a stronger individual. Those high vibrations that you can put out to the world that are going to attract people in, so that you can influence them. And it just grows and grows and grows. Unlimited abundance is what we're talking about. You talk about how to get to it. This is it. But make sure you understand the roadblocks. And I talk a lot about in my book about roadblocks and then how to overcome them, because these roadblocks do exist. We're human at the end of the day. So make sure you just acknowledge them and work through them as you're going on your journey, because new roadblocks will introduce themselves as your purpose it gets bigger and bigger, because those new challenges will come up, right?
Yeah, thank you for that. That wraps, like, it just pulls everything through. It's like you just put the string through and they just pulled it tight, right? You just wrapped up this nice package of everything that you talked about today. Is have purpose but bring along all the joy and the fun and the experience with it, and let go of the judgments.
Otherwise, it's
That's
a negative
beautiful.
experience, right? It becomes a negative experience, and it does. I've lived it before, and I'm sure I'm living elements of it now because I'm not perfect in any stretch of the imagination. But I'm just trying to be aware as I go through this, and
the fractal nature of creation, right? The idea that Hugh just shared his purpose, and purpose doesn't have to mean a business. Purpose doesn't have to mean somebody else's creation for you or what they think you should be doing, right? It's whatever we decide to do. If I can share real quick, are you okay on time for a few minutes?
I'm good, of course. I could stay here all day.
Okay. Malcolm Gladwell. I watched a story he shared today about David and Goliath, and the perception that we have of David and Goliath, that David was the underdog. And he shifted it on its head. He put this story on its head. He said, well, if you think about it, Dave was a master at slinging stones. He was masterful. In fact, he had the upper hand when it came to that. And from a distance, there was no touching this guy. In fact, they have archers and artillery because of that reason, because they can outperform infantry from a distance, right? Well, here we think that David is an underdog, but he has the upper hand, right? And he doesn't wear armor and do it the way that they think he should do it. He does it his way, right? So he comes at it his way with his strength and his ability, where he is masterful, and he goes and attacks the situation from his strength, right? Whereas we think of it the other way around, is that he conquered this giant who had the upper hand. That's untrue.
It's totally untrue.
Untrue. Yeah. And what a perception, to hear it that way, is that, in this situation in our lives, we have strengths that other people don't have. And we have ways of approaching the world that other people can't match. And it's up to us to exploit those in a way, to really use those to our advantage. And it's going to look different from somebody else. They're going to look at us and go, you shouldn't do this. You put on this armor, 100 pounds of armor, right?
Right.
That'll protect you. And we're
do it the old ways, the old beliefs, the old records that we have in our mind, that for some reason that's the way it's supposed to be. I got to tell you, there's a lot of ways to live life. There's a lot of ways to live life, and that's what makes this so wonderful. You just have to realize, you have to discover those in yourself as well. Discover that you don't have to go to the mold of somebody else. The world is changing just in terms of work. People don't want to go in the office anymore. They don't want to have the 9-to-5 jobs. They might want to be consultants, and they want to integrate life and work together, and their personal life, so that they can literally have, they can live life at a higher level, if you will, for them, or experience more joy, happiness, and fulfillment. Those all, in the last 2 years, have all changed, right? And so, that's just a way of looking at it, that the rules that we used to go by aren't the rules even of today. They just changed in the last 2 or 3 years. That's just something that we can look at right now. It might say, but ignore the rules of the past. And we were forced to do that because of COVID. We were forced to ignore rules. People said we could never, you have to come to the office, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. COVID said, yeah, no, you're not doing that. Boom, here's the new reality. And so look for those reality. You don't have to drumbeat at the same drumbeat as the other guy. I don't know. I'm using the analogy.
I like that.
You really have to go. Yeah, you can live life a lot of different ways. And when I realized that, I'm like, God, I am okay. You know what? I do have a different kind of life. It's a little bit of a different life, but I'm okay. Yeah, it's okay to do this. I'm checked around. It's okay, right? And then accept that in other people as well. They have that as well.
This is cool, Ryan. What thoughts are you having, man?
Man, that I sat here quiet for a lot of it, but mostly just because your knowledge just poured out, and the things that we talked about are very similar in your book, and in your belief system, and the things that you're doing and have done. That it was just fascinating just to sit here. Like I said, I'm just about to have carpal tunnel. I'll probably have tennis elbow as well, and, something. But for me, realizing and I kind of had this little breakthrough, like, hey, there's somebody that I relate to that, just has ADHD, has these things, has these visions, has this work ethic, has this drive, and gets excited.
Right? It's like, holy cow.
Exactly. And so I'm sitting here going, oh, so
there is somebody else out there like you, right?
If he can do that, I can do that.
Yeah.
And it gives me hope. It gives me more belief in myself, that I'm like, wow, maybe, maybe there's possibilities here, and I can look at things through a different lens and go, and now start shifting my perspective, and attracting and doing the things that will bring those changes in. And so those at home that are watching, take a lot of his experiences that he related. We went more business on this, with a little bit of personal kind of mixed in there as well. But um, it's the same type of journey. It's the same type of, it's a formula. You follow that similar formula, it's going to look different. The experiences you're going to have are definitely going to look different. But look, in 12 steps, you could see where they were on their journey. All the guests that we have in here, whether it's somebody that's going through some severe depression or anxiety, that's maybe doesn't has a loss of limbs, things like that. We've had people that have had that on our show. We talk about it all the time. And those people have their challenges. You're going to have your challenges as well, but you follow a basic outline as you're going along. You'll be able to see where you're at and be able to have that awareness to be able to shift to whatever reality you want to have. So just start stepping. You're right on time. You're exactly where you need to be. We talk about this all the time,
Oh
and
God, that's so
I
true.
stole Nick's lines.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That
no,
is so true.
it's
But
beautiful.
I say that all the time too.
yeah.
That is so true.
Like I've always said, you're right on time.
You're
I just
exactly where
kept
you need to
picturing,
be at this moment in time. Yeah,
I
yeah.
pictured the Christmas story, the Isle of Misfit Toys.
Yeah,
It's like the tribe of giants is like the Isle of Misfit Toys. Like
yeah.
like all these people that think they're broken turn out to be phenomenal
Yeah.
in their own way. And there's that song in there, just put one foot in front of the other, right? And soon you'll be walking out the door, and it'll be stuck in your mind. If you play that song, it'll just be like running. But that's truly it, is just put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door, right? And so you have been an incredible teacher today, Ken. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love what you guys are doing. Honestly, I feel like I've met people that think so, like me. So I'm like, oh, this is great. I can talk all day to you guys. This is true. It's been wonderful, really.
Yeah, it's that little hit of dopamine of, hey, I got confirmation that there are people like me in the world, right? So for those that are watching, as always, we always do the symbol of the X is where you are. This is it. This is where you are. So from here, where are you going to go? Your vision is where you're coming from. Beautiful thing. Rich Litvin talks about the goal being where you're coming from, not where you're going to. And that comes from who you're being. So where you are right now is what you got to work with. What are you going to do with it? Right? So use it as a stepping stone, and soon you'll be walking out the door. So we appreciate you. Make it a giant day. We will see you in the next video.
Love you too.